Welcome or welcome back to my booktube channel, Goddess of Gore. My name is Vix and I like to talk about horror, thriller, sometimes fantasy and occasionally sci-fi books every week. Today is my TBR and it's a long one this time. We'd better get on with it. It's official. I'm doing 2 readathons or reading challenges this month. One, which I have a separate video for, and that is the Horror Mayhem Challenge. It has a genre prompt every week and I will include my video above and below, as well as the Bookish Bryant's announcement videos, who are hosting the event along with a load of other horror booktubers and authors. And those videos will be happening throughout the whole month. It's going to be fantastic, and having the genre prompts is a way to change things up if you're new to reading horror or stuck in a reading rut. So very quickly, my horror short novel choices are: week 1, creature themed Slugs by Sean Hudson. Week 2, gothic themed Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu. Week 3 is cosmic themed and I've chose The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Laval. And week 4, folk themed Ritual by David Pinner. Terrific, fantastic, I cannot wait for those. And I will mention the other readathon at the end of the video. Now, housekeeping. I have a lot of leftovers from last month and they are: I have to finish the fantasy book The Blade Itself by Jo Abercrombie, Herland, the vintage feminist short story by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, another fantasy book, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, and the literary mystery Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If I really knuckle down, I might be able to get to the couple of books I actually want to get through this month. There's only 3 because I know how busy I'm going to be with all of the reading challenges and everything else in life, of course. So they are The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James, a mystery thriller set in 2017 about Shay, who's a receptionist but a part-time sleuth blogger. In other words, she's a nosy, naughty, nosy. And she has a website called The Book of Cold Cases, as Shay tries to shed some light on the forgotten, unresolved cases. By chance, she meets a woman called Beth, who, back in 1977, was acquitted in the so-called Lady Killer's murders of 2 young men. But the killer was never found. So she asked Beth for an interview, and they set up meeting in the reclusive woman's mansion. They always have a mansion. But when the interviews start, strange things start happening to Shay in the mansion, and she begins to wonder if Beth really was the killer, or is there something more dangerous than she ever thought afoot in Oregon. I'll be reading this on ebook. You've probably heard of it. It's been a big one on BookTube last month. Next is another purchased ebook, and that is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. And Travis is an audiobook voice actor turned author, and I just love this cover. It follows a half-orc barbarian named Viv who wants to slow down and open a coffee shop in the town of Thune. But Thune has other plans, and her desire to sling coffee instead of an axe is not on the menu in this town of orcs, elves, gnomes and succubi. I have only heard good things about this, and one person explained it as the house on a cerulean sea with hard fantasy. And somebody else said if Animal Crossing and Dungeons and Dragons had a baby, it would be this book. And you know what? I'm sold. And then the last one is another ebook I own, and that is The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. I hadn't read any sci-fi last month, and this is a horror sci-fi that has been on every one of Rachel's from the Shades of Orange's list of horror sci-fi recommendations for as long as I can remember. This is about Jaya, who gets on a very well paid mission by fudging her skills. but she really needs the money. And it's just some mining expedition, right? What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words. Well, she was wrong, very wrong, and she finds herself being drugged and used to everyone else's advantage in a very dark, unknown cave with only herself and the voice in her earpiece for company. She gets the feeling she's being watched in the dark. Ooh. I also have 2 audiobooks that I'm expecting to be available this month from my library, and that is Queenslayer, the 5th book in the YA Fantasy Spellslinger series by Sebastian de Castell, and 7 Sisters by Lucinda Riley. And this will be my book club's pick for the month. But we're not meeting this month, so I can take my sweet time with it. And it's a mammoth 18 hours of audio, and it's billed as an epic historical fiction. 6 sisters gather at a castle on the shores of Lake Geneva to be told that their adoptive billionaire father, Parsault, has died. He has left each of them a clue to their own heritage, and the series follows each of the women as they travel to discover themselves. This one follows Maya as she travels to Brazil. Now, I did think initially it had some magical fantasy in it, but having read the synopsis properly, sounds doubtful. Great. I will spend the rest of the month getting to the books I have from July publishing dates last year from NetGalley that I am desperate to get read, reviewed, and they are Dead Man's Grave by Neil Lancaster, about 2 Scottish detectives, Max Craigie and Janie Cadder, who uncover blood feuds in a small Scottish town as well as corruption in the Scottish Police Service. Such a Quiet Place by Megan Miranda. As you may know, I read The Last Houseguest just for Spring Flingoween, and although it wasn't the best thriller, I still enjoyed the twist, so I'm hoping that this one will be just as good, if not better. After a murder in an idyllic neighbourhood, residents are left trapped in their unsellable houses when they give testaments about one of the residents, Ruby, who is suspected of killing a family on the street called the Truettes. Except she was acquitted, and now she's back to live with her sister, and she's not welcome at all. The sister, Harper, starts getting threats, and she knows she really has to find out who killed the Truettes before the killer strikes again. A Turner by Kim Bannerman. This one is not very well read at all. I really struggled to find other people who had read it. It's about a world of vampires who live and rule underground. Having eradicated humans, they have lived a life of excess and opulence away from the surface. But for one vampire, Marcus, curiosity may just be the death of him, or the empire living below the surface. So a bit of a dystopian vampire fantasy novel. I'm not sure, but I'll give it a go. The Hollows by Mark Edwards, a horror thriller that tells a tale of Tom and his daughter Frankie, who, anxious to rebuild their relationship, go to a cabin in the deep woods of Hollow Falls. But when Tom meets up with true crime podcasters, he's told of the gruesome history of the falls, about how 20 years ago to the day, a double murder shut the place down. But strange, eerie sounds coming from the trees and echoes throughout the forest turn their dream trip into a nightmare. Next, The Dying Squad by Adam Simcox, and this is a paranormal detective story following Detective Joe Lazarus, who finds himself dead while on duty. And waiting for him is his spirit guide, Daisy May. She enlists him into the Dying Squad, ghost police who solve crime from beyond the veil, and when he agrees, he's sent back to his town to solve his own murder. Now, let me stop myself right there. A little known fact about me is I have a bit of a love affair with a select few films, and R.I.P.D. is one of them, and I will fight anyone who says it's not good. Will this be a winner too? We will see. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, set in 1345 China. It's a historical adventure story with fantasy elements. It follows the story of Zhu Zhongba, who takes on her brother's identity after he is killed joins a monastery, learns how to be brave and fight against the Mongol emperors, filled with war, strategy, plot, and strangely, ghosts. Notes from a Burning Age by Claire North. This is another one I'm not sure about. A sci-fi dystopian fantasy about Ven, a priest and guard of ancient texts, from a time of excess and disaster named the Burning Age. They're guarded so they can never be found and repeated. But a gang of revolutionaries called the Brotherhood pressure him into translating some more ancient writings. Ven will soon have to decide what he's willing to do to save his world. And then a fun little book called PJ and the Paranormal Pursuers by Jackie Dempster. A horror YA about a boy called PJ who, after the death of his mother, leaves New York to live with his aunt Katie in Edinburgh. He meets new friends at a bereavement group, and together they set about to prove that there is life after death. But after they receive a message to go to the Greyfriars Kirkyard, PJ is tricked into letting out an evil poltergeist. Well, we've all been there, PJ. He and his friends have a battle against good and evil when they face the ghost of George Mackenzie. Midsummer Murders is a collection of 12 Agatha Christie short stories put together in this summer-themed anthology from Cornwall to the French Riviera. Christie's famous sleuths solve the conundrums in the summer sun. I'm not well versed in Agatha Christie. I have tried to start collecting the paperbacks, and the TV shows, well, I always thought they were for old farts. But now they've been given a bit of a resurgence with Kenneth Branagh taking over as Hercule Poirot. And then finally, Lucy is Coming for You by Ashley Began. Summer works at a high-security locked hospital ward, but begins to question her own sanity when an extremely violent patient, Lucy, disappears from within. Not only has she gone, but the other staff claim to never even seen her. As Summer starts to dig a little deeper, she begins to wish she had never started looking, because now Lucy's looking for her. Titled as a gripping psychological thriller. Well, I'll be the judge of that, thank you. And then, at the end of the month, my friend Elizabeth from Reading Riley is co-hosting a weekend read-along called Thrill the Weekend. Bing bong. This is an announcement for all the missing information that I didn't put in. Thrill to the Weekend is taking place on May 27th, 28th and 29th. Thank you. And she just recently released a video of 9 horror thriller novellas that she loves and fit nicely with the weekend. So I thought I would challenge myself, since I have them all on e-reader or physically, and I will link that video above and below, because she will be able to sell the books better than I can. But briefly, they are Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca, a novella with body horror and gore over a vintage apple peeler. Yummy. Last Case at a Baggage Auction by Eric J. Gugnard, a novella about a bag won at an auction that contains a sinister gramophone and a severe case of earworm. We all know how that feels, don't we? Blanky by Keelan Patrick Burke. After the death of his baby daughter and the breakup of his marriage, Steve's nightmare is only the beginning, as he finds the Blanky he buried with his daughter back in her empty room one evening. The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. The famous ghost story has been retold by several authors over the years, but this is the OG, the original, and it's about a governess who takes care of 2 very creepy kids in their very creepy home that she is convinced is haunted. The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. A fake psychic is ripping people off left, right and centre until she meets Susan Burke. Susan thinks her house is haunted, and the psychic thinks she can make a few quid out of Susan until she gets to the house. Whoa. Comfort Me with Apples by Catherine M. Valente. Sophia Has a Perfect Husband, Perfect House, perfect neighbourhood, perfect life, perfect. Except her husband is always at work. He starts giving her strange looks sometimes. And there's that room in the basement that he always keeps locked and told us to stay away from. But apart from that, everything's perfect. Isn't it? Ooh, curious cat's gotta know. Nothing But Blackened Teeth by Cassandra Core, a wedding held in a mansion haunted by a ghost bride who's getting very lonely. And then the last one, In the Tall Grass by Stephen King and Joe Hill, tells the tale of a child crying from the tall grass at the side of the road. But once inside the grass, can you ever find your way back out and even find the child who is crying? Let's see how many I can get through, and you can watch lots of the hosts and co-host videos for even more ideas, and you can get involved too if you want to. They have a Discord all set up, a movie night and a buddy read, so I hope you and myself will be there along for it. So that's it. Are you doing any group reads this month or soon? Let me know what they are and what your picks are. Are you already taking part in the two I've mentioned? Thank you so much for watching. As ever, please consider sticking around for more content, and even like and subscribe if you want to. But I am very grateful that you are watching today. Now, this TBR is insane, I know. I did warn you it was a lot. It's very ambitious, but I always think my TBRs are ambitious. And as long as I read a few off the list, I will be happy with that. I don't get myself too worked up about cramming them all in. I do remember that this is a hobby. Now, remember to descale your kettle. You can get a terribly upset stomach from limescale, you know. Until next time. Bye bye.